which is the surface modeling exercise. It is fairly similar to the first one, except we will be working with surfaces. So I will go through it a little bit quicker now that you have been introduced to some of the workflows and tools in BricsCAD. So for surface modeling, I have now created a new file and I will draw a rectangle like previously. However, now it asks for me to give the rectangle fillets. I can draw the rectangle and then apply fillets if I want, but I will also create, or I can also go through the command line dialog and I can select the fillet option. If I do that, it will ask me for a value and I will select the, or I will give them a value of 20 millimeters. And if I now I want to start my sketch in the origin point of the drawing, I can do that by clicking in the origin, but I can also do it by typing 0, 0, 0 in the command line, and it will start my sketch in the origin. It's quite an easy way to start sketching from the origin, and it's something I use quite often. I can also type in the coordinates for the second point of this rectangle, but I will do it similarly to before, where I will type the value of 200 millimeters here and 250 in the other direction. When I click to accept, you will see I have the rectangle here with fillets already created. In step 3 of surface modeling, it is asking me to draw a line to create a specific boundary for my model. This line should go from the endpoint of the radius here over to the other side and the endpoint of the radius here. So a straight line across the model here to create this boundary here. Once I have this boundary, I can use the DM extrude command. And in the command line dialog, you will see I can select the mode for extrusion, where I can pick the surface mode. And then I can select my region to extrude it as a surface. I can also hover over it with my cursor, go through the quad and to the draw option. And here you can see the region option, which you can also use. If I use this, it will generate a surface for me on the boundary that I was hovering over. The sketch will still remain, so it is not necessary to keep here for now, so I will just delete it by selecting it and hitting delete on my keyboard. Next, in step 4, I'm going to extrude the outer edges of this surface or this region. To do this, you can again use the DM extrude command with the surface mode, or you can hover over it, go to the model tab and find the surface extrude option as such. I want it pointing out with an angle, so I will give it its height value first, which is 60, and tab to the angle value. Then I can tilt it inwards or outwards. I want it outwards, so I will lean it outwards first and then type in the value, which is 40 degrees, and hit enter to accept. Now the goal of this exercise is to create a dustpan, so we will have to modify it a little bit to be a bit more efficient as a dustpan. But before that, you can see that now this is a region or this is a surface and the walls around it is a separate surface. The model should be listed as one surface throughout the exercise. So I will select each surface. Like before, I hover over it, hold Control and click. Hover over this, hold Control and click to select the surfaces. Same with the solids. And now I can use the command DM stitch, which will stitch the surfaces together. In the command line, I can see that there were two entities in the set, and one surface was successfully created. Now to make the pan of this a bit more efficient for the dustpan design, I want to rotate the bottom surface upwards. I want this edge in here to reach the top edge of this here. So I will hover over this surface or this face. I can then select it and go to the ribbon and select the option to rotate. I can, of course, also find this in the quad through the model tab and the rotate option. Then I can select an edge or a line to rotate around. I will select to rotate around this back edge here. And then I can give it a value or I can place it manually. As I'm not entirely sure what the angle would be, I can then just snap onto this endpoint like I have been doing with the solid as well. So I will just select this, but you will need the snapping to endpoint option on. And there you can see it was rotated to make a more suited design for a dustpan, I would say. Next up, we should make a handle for this. I will make a cutout here that will make for the handle of the dustpan. To do this, I will create a rectangle where I can use or type or set the center of the rectangle first. I will have to use the polygon center side option, which is under the same sub option as the rectangle. I will activate polygon center side. Then I can select the or first it will ask me to set the number of sides in my polygon. I want 4 sides. So I will type 4 and accept it. Then I can place the center of my polygon, which I want to be the midpoint here. And then I will draw my polygon. Now the polygon is rotating around a lot. If I go close to a axis, it will lock onto the axis, but I can also use the shift key. If I hold the shift key, it will automatically align with the axis, and I can place it more confidently. I want it to be 30 millimeters from the center to the side, so I will type in 30 and hit enter. And here I have a polygon. The reason why we draw this is that we want to use this shape to cut out and cut away this part of the sheet or the surface. So we will use the DM extrude command with the surface option, like before, and extrude it backwards, except this time we want to use this extrusion to slice the surface. And in the bottom of the screen on the command line, you can see there is an option to slice the model. So I will select this option. And when I can just accept the extrusion length now, and it will slice out this part here. So it is separate from the rest of the surface. So I will hold Control, select this part and delete it. And from here, we have room to make a handle. Now to extrude, we want to extrude the edges around here. I can select them manually again, or I can use the selection windows like I did before. So if I use this window, it will select everything that touches it. So it's not an option, but I can use the selection window by clicking and dragging to the right instead, so that it is covering all 3 of these options, or these edges, I mean. On the bottom of the screen, you can see there is the control toggle options, like I showed you for the extrusion earlier. Here I can choose to select entities, surfaces, or edges. I want to select the edges, so I will select or click the control key 1, 2 times. So it highlights the edge selection. Then I will place the last point of my selection window, and the 3 edges are selected. So that is a quick, simple way to select several edges at once. Then I will use the surface extrude again. However, the handle is going and extruding at a bit of an awkward angle. I would rather have it extruded from or along the x-axis. So I will be going to the command line dialog where I can set direction. And I will set the x-axis as my direction. And then the extrusion will be locked to that direction. I will then give it the value of 250 millimeters as such. I also want to close off this back end here. I can do this by selecting this edge and also using surface extrude, and then by snapping it onto the other side. Now I also want to maybe rotate the handle upwards a little bit for a bit of more of an ergonomic hold. To do this, I can again use selection windows. I will do this. So with the green window, it will select everything that is touching the window. And I will use my control key to toggle to the selection of faces, then accept that selection. And I have selected all the faces of the handle. Then I will use the rotate command similar to the bottom of the pan, but now I will select this edge as the rotation point or rotation, the axis to rotate around. Sometimes you will see that you will have to select a point to make it rotate, a point that you select to move it around by. And I want it upwards just by 12 degrees. So I will move it upwards and type in 12 degrees, like so. And I'm pretty happy with this design. So now for step 13, we will just make some finishing touches. I will just select the edges here of the handle. You can do this with the selection modes that I showed you earlier as well, where you can select them manually and then use the fillet command as before. And I will give them a 6 millimeters. I will also select the bottom edges of the dustpan and also use the fillet command, and this time give them a value of 25 millimeters, like so. Although it wouldn't be realistic to manufacture this because the surface is super thin, it is basically no solid at all, only a surface. So we can use a mode or a command called the DM thicken command. This will add material onto our surface. By activating it, I can then select my entire solid. And I can then select to add a set number of millimeters onto the surface. So I will want to add 2 millimeters. And as you can see, it added material onto my dustpan, and it is now classified as a solid, a 3D solid instead of a surface. Also, I will select it and go to the properties panel where I can change the color of it like before to green again, for example. And I can also go to the transparency setting and change it to 50, like in the last step. And then I can observe my model and see that it is transparent as such.